I think you were keen to point out when you joined our stream tonight that the Bertha situation and the West Virginia flooding are separate, and Bertha is also separate from our weather impact concerns tonight.
So the cold front that caused all of that horrible flooding in Kentucky and West Virginia is the same one that's here, but we're not going to see its bad impacts. But yes, we did talk about the fact that Bertha is completely separate from the system. And actually, truthfully, Bertha was a little bit less impactful than expected. There were still horrible, waves, and you could see the beach erosion. And yes, if I'm a fisherman, I'm probably not going out on that. But really the worst water when it comes to the rain actually stayed offshore. So I wouldn't say that they got lucky because, if somebody's impacted, they don't think that they're lucky. But in the grand scheme of things, it was less impactful than Arthur just a few weeks ago. So two storms, both tropical systems, both tropical storms, no hurricanes. So I think definitely kind of getting, again, on the luckier side with those two there if you're in the Gulf Coast. Flooding, though, is still expected to be an issue here locally closer to home. I will say that I am expecting these numbers to be a little bit lower based on the fact that our trends have been lower as well. I mean, but 1 to 3 versus, 4 to 5 doesn't really seem like that big of a difference. Localized flooding is still going to be a big impact for you tomorrow, but with a later arrival time with this stalled cold front, that could mean overall lesser rainfall impacts, at least during the overnight hours. We do still have a low risk for isolated damaging wind gusts there. You can see that on your screen. But again, this is not going to be as big of an impact when it comes to the severe weather potential as we were talking about earlier, which it was always at a low risk. But I do think for the most part, we're probably clear from severe here in the Charlotte area. I would still expect a low in risk if you're closer to Greensboro and Raleigh-Durham. So here's the latest rainfall totals range. And again, I mentioned this on the stream with Vanessa. I think these numbers are a little bit more doable, a little bit more accurate based on what we had earlier. We were watching a few areas, again, 1 to 3 inches with isolated higher totals. But earlier, some of our models were really going high with some 4 to 7s and some 7 to 10s. I do think that will be mainly east of us. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't see a few pockets here of higher rainfall totals, especially east of Charlotte. But there is no forecasting skill in figuring out where the heaviest rain bands will set up. That is completely dependent on where the front stalls. But what we do know is there is still the risk for localized flooding. That's why we're under that low in flooding risk today and again tomorrow, and you'll see this here as we widen the map here. Highest rainfall is expected Raleigh and eastbound, but again, we're still under a medium risk for Thursday before eventually the front shifts further south as we get closer to Friday. So rain and storm potential still remains overnight and into Thursday. Likely some lesser rainfall totals compared to earlier model runs, but again, that's not a bad thing. That still brings us beneficial rainfall without the risk of substantial flash flooding. Still a risk there, but it does look to be trending downward. Really quick update here. I had some folks asking during our live weather impact show earlier whether or not the rain that we see overnight will impact the drought monitor. It will not, because the drought monitor comes out at 8:30 on Thursday mornings, but the data collection ends on Tuesday night. So we won't see any kind of rainfall help from this until the monitor that comes out next Thursday on July 30th. Here's a look at radar right now. You can again see areas of rain and storms have just been continuous, but mainly toward areas north of the I-40 corridor. That's why we have this flash flood warning right now in effect for Arcadia up toward Winston-Salem and Greensboro. But closer to the Charlotte metro, all of this action for the most part has been north of Lake Norman. As we take a wider view here, you can see a few little spritz moving into parts of Stanley County, it's Cleveland County, but this is really the first time we've seen anything closer to the I-85 corridor. As we enter the overnight hours, here's 5 a.m. Here's where that big push of rain off and on just for hours and hours is expected. These are called training storms, where they move over the same spots for multiple rounds at a time. And that's what allows for that higher risk for localized flooding. So again, that's most of the day tomorrow. I do expect us to get some breaks Tuesday or Thursday night, that is, but we will see another push there of rain into Friday morning as well. So something I'll be watching tomorrow night at this time right here on WCNC Charlotte. Rainfall totals do start to trend a little bit lower for Friday and heading into the weekend, but we will still see some showers in the forecast, so certainly nothing we're getting away from until probably the second half of your weekend. Here's that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Drier by late Sunday, but at least in the near term, it's all about the rain. Full forecast looks to get us closer to the mid-90s again by this time next week.
Brittany, thank you.